right, welcome to episode number 5 of Between Two Rigs. I am Jeremy Compton, VP of Engineering for DE Consulting. With us is Mr. Pat Salvo, CEO of DET. First and foremost today, I want to get this right off the bat. Please watch this entire video. We are going to discuss something that's very personal. We're getting into Oilfield Conservancy. We're getting into the image of the oilfield pertaining to what's going on. This isn't a performance. This isn't an optimization. This is something that we felt like we really wanted to discuss and try to put some facts out there and just our thoughts on what's going on. So we're going to get right into it. This past week, I went on a hunting trip with my wife. She drew a public land mule deer tag in New Mexico, and we were hunting on public land the entire time. It's 90% BLM. If you don't know what that is, that's a Bureau of Land Management. It's federally owned, state owned. This is land that we're drilling a lot on, especially in southern New Mexico. It's a very big play right now. And we're looking at all of this drilling activity, production, completion, from tee to green. This is a very hot spot in the oilfield right now. One of the few places we still have rigs. How many rigs did we have in 2014-15? Over 2,000?
Yeah.
Over 2,000 rigs. I think last week's rig report was a little over 200.
That's right.
So we've gone from 2,000 plus rigs to 200. We don't have a lot of activity right now in the States. So when you see rigs, and we see 10, 15, 20 rigs running out there, that is a hot spot for where we are. So we're looking at this, and my wife and I just had a lot of time to sit and talk. We were hunting 12-hour days, 5 days in a row, discussing this. And we just kept asking ourselves, we're looking around, we're on federal land, and we're saying, well, we have a new president-elect who is coming out and who is saying, we're shutting down oilfield on federal lands. It started off as we're shutting down oilfield on all lands, but then reclarification, we're shutting down oilfield on federal lands. No more fracking, no more production. We're shutting this in. And we're just looking at each other and like, how did we get here? How do we have a guy and a vice president lady who says this in rallies and people cheer, shut the oil field down, shut the oil field down. And we're looking around at what's going on, what's happening, and how did we get here? I think a lot of people's perception of the oil field is, what the oil field of the 50s, what the oil field of the 80s versus now. I think, kind of get into that difference of people's perception of what we see.
Yeah, whenever you look back at some of the things that are portrayed in the past and where we are today, there's been leaps and bounds differences on making sure we're taking care of the environment and doing our part to conserve things and keep things the way they are, because we all have kids, we all have families, we want those things to be enjoyed just like we can enjoy them right now. And one of the things that we talk about on every project is really how do we make sure that we're doing our part for the environment, for water sources. One of the first things that we ever do on any engineering now is we make sure that we're protecting the water sources first and foremost. That's one of the first things that we ever do on any of our projects. And we make sure that that is always going to be pristine so we can all enjoy that, because it's one of those things that we have to have for life. Life is way more important than any kind of economic return.
Exactly.
And so doing our part is such a big deal.
And that's federally regulated.
Of course.
It's not like we get to choose, well, there might be fresh water here that we need to protect. No, it is mandate regulated, compressive strength and cement, casing strength. How are you going to protect the fresh water in this area?
Right.
We have to show the state or the government every well we drill how we're going to do that.
That's right.
And they have to approve it. We just can't go out there and randomly pick depths. And there's science behind everything we do.
Right.
First and foremost, we have to protect the water for our people.
Yep.
So, you get into that and, looking at what I see so many posts. Vince, one of our project managers, had a really good post on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago that got lots of traction on. He found this, not necessarily a meme, but just kind of a brochure or something that was discussing oilfield of now. Yeah. And they used a photo from the 50s. and you're looking at it and you're like, well, that's not what the oil field looks like. Why are we using that?
Right.
So, I mean, kind of looking at it right now, let's go through that. Here's some stuff of oil field of the old. Now we can kind of look at, here's some oil field of the 80s versus, you know, some oil field of where we are now and what that looks like. There's a dramatic difference.
Yeah.
You know, and so we kind of get into this and we're like, well, one is the oil field. We do not do a good job as an industry of communicating what we're doing.
That's right.
We don't. We're very tight-lipped. And why is that?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you expose things or you talk about things, it's always for judgment or what wasn't said or read between the lines. And that leaves you exposure, regardless if there should be any exposure or not. I'm sure we've all felt that way, where you say something and it's taken a certain way whenever it wasn't supposed to. And what I think that has mostly happened throughout our industry is some repercussion has come from something that we weren't trying to have happen. And we were trying to communicate something well or about good, about what's happening and how things are happening. And it's misconstrued into something totally different. And our industry is sort of taken aback by that and said, well, maybe we should just limit exposure at all and not even talk about these things, is what it seems like.
So, you know, one of the things that I really like to do for our customers is take a drone out to a rig, especially on a first well for a new company or a record well, or, you know, and we'll fly the drone. We'll get some really good pictures. We'll put it on a, you know, canvas for them, blow it up, hang it in their office. You know, it's really cool. It's a good piece of tracking history, and they're proud of. To do that, I have to scrub all names off the photo. I have to get permits, get approved, get signed off from everybody before I can even take a picture of a rig. And why is that? Because if it rained 2 hours before we show up and there's a puddle of water on the ground and we post a picture and it shows fluid on the ground, someone's going to try to sue the rig company and come after them for polluting.
Yeah.
Because they saw a post on Facebook or LinkedIn. I mean, that's the extremes that we live in, and that's why we backed up so much.
Yeah.
It's not excusable.
Right.
We've created a situation where 95% of the country apparently has no idea what we're doing to get gas in their car every day when they go to work.
Sure.
And so, you know, that kind of gets into, well, we want to shut down drilling in America. I mean, like China, Russia, go down South America, Mexico, like go down the list of these countries. And we're like, well, we want to be dependent on foreign oil.
Right.
So do you care about the United States or do you care about the world as a whole?
Sure.
Because shutting down drilling in America only leads to us being dependent on people who are polluting 10 to 20 times more emissions, not caring about surface water, not caring about rivers. Look, we're not dumping plastics into the ocean. China is, and it's getting to us. So, but I mean, do we just care about America or do we care about the world? Well, I care about the world. And if we can do it cleaner, more efficient, better technology, and provide cheaper, ultimately, products for the consumer, we should be doing it, not relying on a third world country or a communist dictator to supply us our oil.
Right. No doubt about it. I mean, it just goes to show you, so kudos to the U.S. and the leaps and the bounds of the things that are put in place for the right reasons, right? Whenever we can all agree on, hey, this is the right thing for conserving the environment, doing the right thing for people in general, and just having a people-conscious vision, we get to see where we are now, and you continue to make strides and steps in the right direction for the right reasons for humans.
Yes.
That's what we're all here for.
Yes, and I mean, and so the second part of this, when I see people who are celebrating, you get on social media and you see people celebrating the fact that a different party is coming in that wants to shut down our industry. And I started asking myself, like, do these people know what petroleum provides? I mean, like, we got some lists here. What are some common things that we make in America out of our oil?
Yeah, and I mean, just a list of a couple things that aren't politically affiliated at all, right? Just everyone uses aspirin, chewing gum, clothes, dentures, lipstick, rugs, shampoo, toothpaste, solar panels.
Solar panels.
I mean, that's by no means all encompassing, just a little list of things that happen and are used every day. And I mean, when we're talking about using clean energy and doing those things. Now we're talking about solar panels and are being made out of petroleum products to provide a different energy source. We still are reliant on a lot of things that happen with the petroleum and all the things that are happening right now in our everyday life.
Yeah. So, exactly, like we could list 1,000 things that are made from petroleum. It's not that we want to get away from putting gas in the cars. We're going to have to get away from how we live.
Sure.
To get away from petroleum products. I think the third part of this, that really, when I hear a president-elect or a VP or a party or anybody saying, cheering for shutting down the oil field, and what did we hear? We heard this whole election term, we're going to get rid of those, breaks for, oil companies. We're bringing that money back. Pat, we looked up some data. So this is pulled from where?
Yeah, so this is from the U.S. Department of Interior. So we pulled it off their website. You can look at it, fact check it, check out these things. These are some of the facts that we pulled from a source. So in 2018, the federal government got $1.1 billion from just leasing lands from oil companies. Not even the revenue from.
So explain leasing. So people understand what do we have to do when we lease something?
For sure. So that's the oil company basically giving money to the landowner, private, federal, whatever it might be, in this case, the Bureau of Land Management, for the opportunity to even extract oil and gas from those lands. So it's literally, basically think of it as like a rent, like, hey, here's some rent, and we have the opportunity to do this for a certain amount of time. That's sort of how these leases work. And I mean, just to go further into that, so just the royalties in 2018 alone, off of those lease lands, so on top of the $1.1 billion in leases, $3.2 billion in royalties paid to the BLM from those lands, from the royalties, from the oil companies that endured all the expense to be able to go do those things, given the opportunity after the lease, endured the expense, and then that's the other royalties part where from the production of the oil and gas that was paid to the BLM. So we're talking about $4.3 million, according to the U.S. Department of Interior in 2018, just 2018, on doing those things and providing that revenue source that's ultimately used for government expenses.
And that's including zero taxes.
That's right. No taxes even.
$4.3 billion was paid to the federal government in 2018 alone, just off of leasing the land and royalties that come out of the ground.
Right.
So what a lot of people don't grasp numbers here. So let's do some simple numbers.
Yeah.
We pay for a lease. You're paying this percentage to be able to drill here. Then you're having to pay 20 to 25% royalty on top of that.
That's right.
So if we make 100 barrels, basically 20 to 25 barrels of that goes to whoever is the mineral owner. Sure. In the case of the BLM, which is they're talking about shutting this down, they're getting that. But it's a double-edged sword for them because then they get taxes off of the remaining revenue.
Right.
So all companies are starting realistically getting less than half of the money they produce out of the ground.
Yeah.
But they're fronting 100% of it.
Right. Yeah, the expenses are associated with 100%, and the revenue it's getting taken right off the top, going to the BLM, to the associated leases, production, and then taxes included. We're talking about less than half of the revenue is actually able to use to develop the rest of the properties and everything like that. So it cuts margins it's really small whenever you start looking at these numbers.
Yeah. So, and when we hear things like, well, we're going to get rid of these loopholes, it's not a loophole. If we drill a well and it doesn't make money, we get to write that off as an economic loss.
Yeah, I mean, it's an investment. You spend money into it. If it doesn't make money, it is
losing money.
It's losing money.
So the money you lost is written off as a loss.
That's right.
Contrary to popular belief, all of our wells don't make a profit.
Yeah, I mean, there are wells that you go and drill and they don't pay for themselves. It happens that way. It's like every investment, right? There is risk associated no matter what. And you're looking for a return, and a lot of things have to go right to get that return. And it's not an easy business to actually make that happen. There's got to be a lot of things to go right.
I mean, how many bankruptcies are we seeing right now?
Man, it's really hard to even count right now. Just the whole way the world is right now. they're just happening every day on just another person, people losing jobs, right? And it's happening across the country. It's not just the oil field. Let's make sure we understand that. But you see it over and over and over on, they can't sustain this stuff because rights being taken away to actually go and extract oil and gas they really legitimately got on purpose for the right reasons in the right way.
Right. So, and I mean, you put that in perspective. We had over 2,000 rigs. Now we're around 200. And you say an average of 60 to 100 people per rig, just supporting that rig, not around the other stuff.
Yeah.
So you can do the math on that real quick. So while we're out hunting, my wife and I, she's Oilfield. She works with us. She was an engineer on the bit side, reamer side, drone and measurement side. We're talking about what can we do as Oilfield to do more Conservancy? How do we change our image? But you have to understand that we're sitting here looking at just on federal lands alone, not including taxes, our industry paid over $4 billion to the federal government to drill on their land. It cost them zero. They put up zero and they got $4.3 billion in 1 year. And then they point the finger at us and say, you guys need to do more for the environment. Well, I'm sitting here going, well, what are you doing with the $4 billion we paid you? Not including taxes, which if you pull state, local, you go in these oilfield towns and you see these fancy football stadiums. Those are off of wells, taxes paid. But that doesn't matter. We all know if we pay money to the federal government, it's probably not going to a cause we want to support.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's a fair enough statement.
Sure.
And
I mean, let's be honest. It is going to some things. A lot of things we use
our
at
military.
The same time too.
I hope it's used on the military.
Yeah.
Right.
So many things that we're all
things
so
like
thankful for. I guarantee.
Yes.
And at the same time, we look at things where we're like, okay, where does it go?
Yeah.
And we don't have all the answers. I mean, by any means.
So it comes back on us. We have to do a better job. And this is why I wanted everybody to watch the end, because this is kind of my new mission, something I want to take forward. How can we get, a better image with the public? We have to be more vocal.
Sure.
We have to show things. These two rigs behind us in our lovely sponsored backdrop were rigs that we were running. And some of the pictures you've seen earlier and other things are rigs that we're running. We have to do a better job of showing it, but we can't do that on a federal level.
Right.
We have to do it on a local level.
Yeah.
So we're talking and we're like, well, we're out hunting 1 million acres of public land, and New Mexico and West Texas is in a terrible drought right now.
Right.
Finding water sources that are not man-made is almost impossible. The rain sheds, all those are empty. Our ponds are empty. Our springs are dry. We're in a really bad drought in West Texas. It's already dry anyways, So we were thinking, what are we good at as an industry?
Right.
Logistics. That's what we do. People don't realize that this is a circus of moving pieces.
Right.
We move equipment, we move fluids, and we move water. Every rig, every production site needs water. And so on my end, we do a lot of stuff. We deed water wells back to landowners. We put solar pumps in them. When we're done drilling, we put cattle troughs and watersheds and pilas and cisterns and stuff like that to get that back. But I'm driving around looking at these, landowner and watersheds put in and they're bone dry. And we got 4 water lines running beside it.
Right.
We're piping water for hundreds of miles through a desert. Why are we not using some of that water for our wildlife? Why are we not using some of that water for our livestock? Why are we not giving back on a better local level and quit looking at the whole picture and looking at, we're not going to change the attitude federally or nationally of who we are.
Right.
But we can change it on a 50-mile circle or a 20-mile circle.
One person at a time goes a long way.
One person at a time goes a long way. So that's kind of where I think I'm at on this is we're going to start pushing. When we do pipelines, how much do oats and wheat cost? A couple $100 for, a strip? Why are we not replanting over our pipelines? Why are we leaving them as a 2-track in White Rock? Why? We have water. How many water trucks come to a rig a day?
Oh.
In and out, all day long. Why are we not taking that water instead of taking it down the road and putting it, in a disposal pit, why are we not testing it and saying, oh, this is still good water? Let's go water something with it. You know, I mean, and that's a no added cost that we can do. Just so many things. Why are we not involved on local levels in supporting wildlife, supporting livestock, supporting Conservancy? Guess what? We don't want to drill everywhere. I would love for them to go in and draw 500 acres for every 10,000 acres and say, we're just not going to drill here. Drill from the south, drill from the north. We're going to leave this for wildlife. I can draw those unit maps. You can draw those unit maps. Sure. Hell, anybody can draw those unit maps, but we're not doing it because we have gotten as an industry so involved in ourselves and so worried about being sued for anything we do from people outside of the industry. That's how you see when there's a rally and they say we're going to shut down fracking and there's 10,000 people cheering. Well, they drove to the damn rally. Like, what? Why are we going to shut that down? That doesn't make sense, you know? So I think we have to start locally. That's where the battle has to start on our end. We're not going to change people's mind who live in, you know, downtown of a major metropolitan area. But we can change our farmers' minds. Sure. We can change our local city officials' minds. We can get involved in their causes and help them out. Yep. And there's a lot of things that we do that we can do that do not cost us extra money. We're not adding to the expense. We're all going, we see over 100 companies file bankrupt in the last 3 months. Like, it's tough times. Saying that we're just going to allocate 10% over here doesn't make sense. Right. But saying that we can take what we're already doing and figure out how to benefit people locally, how to benefit the wildlife, how to benefit farming, how to benefit things that matter to the people around there. I promise you, in southern New Mexico, all of New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, go down the list, the Dakotas, wildlife matters and livestock matters. Oh, yeah. And those are things that we can help with. We're a lot better at getting water out of the ground than your average person is. And we know how to move it too. We do it for a living. Right. Like, you know, we know how to move fluids. We're in a logistics business of everything. We know how to move equipment. When we have a piece of equipment sitting out on location that's stagnant for a week, we're scared to death to go over and fix this farmer's road, because if 5 years from now somebody runs off of it and catches a pothole, the Oilfield company gets sued for a truck tire. Right. We see it all the time. We've got to get past that. And the way we get past that is changing people's perception. Sure. So we're going to start on it. Yep. We have to start on it on our level. And hope that everyone else follows. Yep. And if they don't, then we're going to change a perception of what we do around us. Sure. And that's all we can do. Sure. And we have to be more vocal, and we have to have more images of what's happening out there, and quit. The silent majority has just became scared of the louder voice. Sure. And we got to get past that. Yep. So I think, you got anything else you want to add on that one? No, I think that's a pretty heavy topic. It's very heavy for everyone right now. Yeah. Especially people that have been watching the shows, and we appreciate that. It's a good message. It is, and we're going to work on it. We'll keep you updated. I'm going after it. It's something that we can do. You know, Pat and I also do construction work and other things like that, and we're going to just tie everything into this and try to be more vocal and image oriented and present a message that people understand. Yep. And not talk in lingo and terms that I want to show people, and I think it's going to be contagious. Yeah. And hope so. We'll be the leaders in it. So that wraps our episode this week. Oh, that was extra salty. So y'all can take a little bit of that and you'll keep it salty, I promise you. Thank y'all for watching. This is near and dear to my heart. It's both of us. We have to change the image of what we're doing. Please share this. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.